So I finally got to play the full version of Star Wars Outlaws over the weekend, and my god, where do I even begin? Well, you've seen the title, so let's just dive into it. Star Wars Outlaws is the worst game I've played so far in 2024, and maybe the worst stealth game I have ever played. The stealth mechanics and mission design are terrible, the open world content and story are extremely lackluster, the characters range from bland at best to completely unlikable at worst, you're basically locked to one weapon for your whole playthrough, and the progression system is totally underwhelming. The game runs mostly fine, but there are some performance issues such as pop-in, flickering, and a few hard crashes to desktop. On top of this, the game is much shorter than I expected, with the main story clocking in around 15 hours. I played through the entire main story and most of the substantial narrative-driven side quests, and I finished all that in 22 hours. Outlaws is definitely not worth the $70 price tag, or $130 if you're going for the Ultimate Cuck Edition. In this video, I'm going to break down everything that's wrong with Star Wars Outlaws. Most of this review will be spoiler-free, but there are some spoilers in the story section if you care about that. So without further ado, let's buckle up, grab some iced coffee, and dive into my review of Star Wars Outlaws. One of the things that surprised me most about Star Wars Outlaws is that it's about 90% a stealth game and 10% action. Before I got my hands on Preview last month, I was expecting something more akin to the Far Cry series, with a roughly 50-50 split between action and stealth, and the freedom to choose your own playstyle. Now, I won't claim to be the most well-versed stealth gamer, but I have played all the Assassin's Creed games, most of the Far Cry games, the Adam Jensen Deus Ex games, and most of the Hitman franchise. And out of all those games I just mentioned, Outlaws is easily at the bottom of the list. So let's dive into the problems with this game's stealth mechanics. The first and by far most frustrating issue with Outlaws is the inconsistent enemy detection. Sometimes enemies will just spot you from halfway across the map when you're doing a silent takedown, and sometimes they'll detect you with eyes in the back of their heads. But other times, you can just sprint right near them and they won't detect you at all. Also, the moment that one enemy detects you, every single enemy in the entire level is instantly alerted and knows exactly where you are. In most cases, they will also instantly trigger an alarm, which brings reinforcements and sometimes downright causes you to fail the mission. But you know what will cause you to succeed in your mission? Hitting the like button on this video and subscribing to Big Dan Gaming on YouTube. I make RPG and action game content, so subscribe if you want to see more. Appreciate you, dude. But anyhow, here's another big problem with the mission design. About half of the missions in the main story require that you never get detected by an enemy or trigger an alarm. This basically ends up funneling you into a trial and error playstyle where you keep redoing sections of the mission until you find the optimal route to not get spotted. It's an incredibly boring and frustrating way to play the game. You do have some options to go for a more action-oriented playstyle, but because of this mission design, you won't get to do this very often. Take this example from one of the early game missions where Kay has to steal a ship from an Imperial station. You cannot trigger alarms during the quest, but there are these explosive barrels scattered throughout the level. You can use your pet companion Nyx to detonate the barrels from stealth, but if you do this, the guards will just automatically trigger an alarm and cause you to instantly fail the mission, even if you were undetected in the process. On one hand, this makes sense. If I were guarding a military base and a barrel randomly exploded and killed 2 soldiers, I would definitely sound the alarm too. But this begs the question, if using the tools available to the player causes them to fail the mission, then why are these barrels in the level at all? It makes no sense from a game design perspective. Also, for some of these missions, the time between being spotted and failing the quest is like 1 frame. In this quest, I tried to lure a guard to my location, but he stopped just out of reach for my melee takedown. So I tried to pop out of cover and take him down, but I just immediately failed before I could even attempt the attack. And in this mission, I failed the quest as I was taking down the guard. Explain to me, how did he manage to kick me out of the district after I knocked his ass out? Another thing that annoyed me is that you cannot shoot out the alarms or cameras. I'm used to the Hitman games where you can knock out cameras with a silenced pistol, but in this game, shooting a camera will often cause you to immediately fail the mission, so you have to find a security terminal or an off switch. Getting spotted by a camera will also immediately alert every enemy to your location, and often triggers reinforcements or a mission failure. Kay's takedown animations are completely ridiculous too. She just KOs enemies with her bare hands, even if they are in complete armor. How does she not break every bone in her hands? Man, even Agent 47 had to hit people with a hammer or put them in a sleeper hold. The one stealth mechanic that I found somewhat unique was your pet companion Nyx. You can send him out to fetch items, get into places you cannot reach, detect enemies, disable alarms, detonate barrels, set traps, distract enemies, or even attack them to set up a takedown for Kay. But overall, I gotta say, Outlaws just isn't a very fun stealth game. In the few areas where Star Wars Outlaws doesn't force you into a stealth playstyle, I actually started to enjoy the action combat. But there are some issues. The biggest one for me is a lack of weapon variety. Kay really only has one weapon, the blaster pistol. There are 3 different blaster modes: Plasma for straight DPS, Ion for shields and droids, and Charge for explosive shots. You also get a one-hit stun shot, which has like a 45-second cooldown. You can also pick up weapons dropped from enemies, but you only get 1 clip per gun, and frustratingly, if you interact with the environment in basically any way, Kay will just drop the gun. Pick a lock, Kay drops the gun. Climb a ledge, she drops the gun. Check your phone to see Ubisoft's stock price, she drops the gun. It's like, bitch, we're going into a heavily guarded gang stronghold right now. Why are you dropping that AK? We're gonna need that. That being said, there are some cool heavy weapons, blaster rifles, and snipers, but I just wish that we could create actual loadouts for our character. But instead, we're relegated to the blaster pistol for most of the game. I did start to enjoy the combat a bit more as the game went on, but unfortunately the vast majority of the game is stealth. And not very good stealth, mind you. If you are caught inside an Imperial base, you will gain wanted levels a la GTA. And at the highest level, you'll be hunted down by Death Squad troopers. This was actually pretty fun. In order to clear your bounty, you'll either need to pay off a corrupt Imperial officer, or locate a nearby Death Squad camp and hack the computer to delete your bounty from their system. The progression system in Outlaws was pretty underwhelming too. There is no leveling up your character. Instead, you have to unlock experts and complete challenges to unlock new abilities. But calling most of these abilities is kind of a stretch, because a lot of them are just slight gear upgrades like better smoke grenades, more HP and defense for Kay, stuff like that. It's also worth pointing out that Kay's outfits don't have any armor rating, though some of them do have passive stats like increased grenade capacity, more adrenaline on takedowns, etc. In order to recruit experts, you'll first have to complete a personal quest for them. There are 2 to 3 experts per planet, some of whom you'll unlock through the main story. Then to unlock new abilities, you'll need to complete challenges like scoring 15 headshots with a marksman rifle. You'll also often need crafting materials and rare components that you'll have to scavenge in side quests in the open world. And now it's time to get into one of the big selling points for this game, the open world. As Ubisoft said in their marketing, experience the first ever open world Star Wars game. Now, I am a big fan of open world games. I'm kind of an open world game junkie. I even enjoy a lot of the mediocre and bad open world games. But Star Wars Outlaws didn't really scratch the itch for me. It's got everything we've come to expect from Ubisoft games: generic collectibles and puzzles, boring copy-pasted missions, and a whole lot of empty space. There are 4 main locations you'll visit throughout the game. Tashara is a green moon with a lot of space to explore outside the main hub. Tatooine is the famous desert planet where Jabba the Hutt lives. Most of this planet is just empty desert with a few assorted locations. Kijimi is a snow planet, but you can really only explore the main town here. And finally, Akiva is a jungle planet, and definitely the most beautiful location to explore. Space exploration was pretty lackluster as well. Pretty much all you'll find is pirate ships to fight and floating cargo to loot. I forgot to mention the space combat earlier too. It's marginally better than Starfield in that the controls are more fluid, but that's a pretty low bar to be honest. As I mentioned earlier, the main quest is only about 15 hours, so if you want to play longer, you'll be doing a whole lot of side content. There are a few substantial side quests with more in-depth storylines, but the vast majority of the content are simple, procedurally generated fetch quests that you'll complete to farm Syndicate reputation points. I'm not 100% sure if these contracts are infinite, but they certainly seem a lot like the Radiant faction quests in Fallout 4. There are 4 main criminal syndicates or factions in Star Wars Outlaws: the Pikes, the Hutts, Crimson Dawn, and the Ashiga clan. Taking on contracts from the Star Wars equivalent of fixers is the fastest way to farm reputation points. Boosting your syndicate reputation allows you to access gang-controlled locations, merchants, unlocks new outfits, blaster skins, and other rewards. In many faction contracts and quests, you'll have an opportunity to betray one gang in favor of another, which will impact your reputation score. But I didn't find it too difficult to reach at least a good reputation with each gang in the game, and I probably could have maxed all of them out if I spent another 10 hours doing repeatable contracts. You can also pick up side quests by talking to NPCs or eavesdropping on conversations to pick up new intel. Most of this content was completely forgettable though, kinda like the main story. The main story of Star Wars Outlaws revolves around assembling a team of crack experts to pull off a major heist at a crime lord's estate. It's kinda like a discount version of Mass Effect 2 without any of the charm or good writing. The protagonist, Kay Vess, is completely forgettable and bland. It feels like her personality was crowdsourced in a corporate boardroom. She lacks humor, emotional depth, or strong motivations. She's basically in survival mode the whole game and lacks a sense of direction. Her 2 biggest attachments in the story are her pet Nyx and your newfound droid companion ND5. Translated into our world, Kay would be a crazy cat lady with an AI chatbot as her best friend. Kay's mother is a complete scumbag who abandoned Kay when she was a teenager to pursue a life of crime. She thought it would work out best for Kay, but Kay ended up becoming a criminal too, just like her mom. The rest of the characters you recruit for the heist were completely forgettable. I just finished the main story less than 12 hours ago at the time of writing this, and I literally can't remember most of their names. To be fair, they don't really get a whole lot of screen time, and there are no loyalty missions for your companions like we had in Mass Effect 2. By the end of the game, I was actually rooting for the villain Slero. The dude was just trying to chill and run his criminal empire. We were the ones who stole from him. He didn't do anything to us except in retaliation. Plus, the big plot twist, spoiler alert by the way, is that the guy who hired us for the heist was actually Slero's estranged brother, so this job was personal. And at the end of the day, the dude ends up betraying us, and we don't get any of the money anyway. So I guess the real heist was the friends we made along the way. Speaking of which, the final mission had this awful part where we had to sneak around and hack a bunch of panels while ND5 tried to kill us. I ended up having to redo this whole part because ND5 despawned during the chase sequence and bugged out a scripted event that was supposed to trigger. The final mission is also well over 2 hours long, and a lot of it is a complete slog from a gameplay standpoint. By the end of it, I was just begging for this game to be over. You can continue to mop up side content after the ending if you choose to, but at this point, I think I'm done with Star Wars Outlaws. So at the end of the day, I'd give Star Wars Outlaws a 4.5 out of 10. The stealth gameplay loop and mission design are horrendous. The story and characters are forgettable. 90% of the open world content isn't worth doing. And the fun parts of the game are shoved under the staircase like Harry friggin' Potter. I really didn't have high expectations coming into this game. I was expecting like a 6 or 7 out of 10 experience with decently fun gameplay, but Ubisoft failed to deliver even on that. So unfortunately, I cannot recommend Star Wars Outlaws, even on a discount really. Maybe if you're a big Star Wars fan and you buy the game like 2 or 3 years from now when it comes onto Steam for like $10 on a sale, then maybe it's worth it. But I think this one is an easy skip for a lot of you. So there you have it, my final review of Star Wars Outlaws. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to Big Dan Gaming for more RPG and action game videos. Big shout out to all the channel members for supporting my content. Until next time, this has been Big Dan. I should go.